Good morning and welcome, thank you, to the Wright Graduate University Idea Café. I'm Dr. Gertrude Lyons. I'm faculty at the Wright Graduate University. I am the director of our family programs at the Wright Foundation for the Realization of Human Potential. And near and dear to my heart, and particularly with this topic of mothering, I'm a founding member of SOFIA, Society of Femininity in Action, which was founded by Dr. Judith Wright. I am so excited to be with you here today. I'm also really scared, kind of shaking, and that's a result of how much this matters to me. And this topic of mothering matters a huge amount to me. It's also a very vulnerable topic, and my whole journey in the Wright Graduate University coming together with 22 years of mothering and all of that and what that's meant to me, and has emerged into what I'm going to share with you today. But there's a couple things I want to do before we kind of really get rolling. So since this is an idea cafe, Graduate University, I'm taking the opportunity to share a little more that I might not about the Wright Graduate University, because it's also an integral part of this and this story. So this experience of Wright Graduate University, I earned a master's degree in transformational as well as a doctoral degree. And when I say earned, I mean it. Because not only is it an incredibly rigorous academic endeavor, where as a master's student, you're required to apprehend, and as a doctoral student, to critically think in 6 different areas of human emergence, psychology, and philosophy. Developmental psychology, Adlerian psychology, human potential existential philosophy and psychology, neuroscience and related research, and transformation education theory and practice. But that's not all. That's almost really the easy part, and probably what most universities require of you. But our university requires that you do all that and bring it into your life, that you apply it to you in such a way that the requirement is that you don't graduate with your master's or your doctorate until you have shown that you have transformed. That's a pretty tall order, but the way the program is formed, it's pretty hard to avoid. And believe me, I tried. There were ways I really did try, actually. But I did choose this path as a crucible for myself in my own adult development. And this talk/experience, to me, is kind of a bringing together, what it is that I experienced in such a way that I hope inspires, moves, shifts, actually, our thinking and how we go about mothering in our lives. So before I go into the talk, I want to presence ourselves as a group, and I forgot to thank at the beginning, our live participants in person here in the room, as well as all of you that are on the webcast, live on the webcast. And what I'd like to ask is that each woman in the room start off and just share your name and a word or short phrase that you associate when you hear the word mother or mothering. And on the webcast, if you would add that to the chat, you don't have to say your name in the chat, just a word or phrase that you associate with mothering, because I really want to gather that from everybody that's here this morning. So I think if you have a mic.
Donna, and the word I associate with mothering is secure.
Ann Gallagher, and the biggest job in the whole world.
Kate, and I'm not proud of the word that first occurred to me, but it was martyr.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I did mean to say, and there are no wrong answers to this. It's all of it is our experience.
Tanya, and my word is nurturing.
Wonderful. So if any of you and please feel free at any point, but now if you would share on the webcast what that is for you. Okay, great. So now, those of you live in the room, I'm going to have you close your eyes. And if you're on the webcast, close your eyes also, unless you're driving and listening to this or doing something where it's not safe for you to close your eyes. And I'm going to ask you to take a nice, big, deep breath. Ooh. but I won't breathe so loudly into the microphone. How about another one? Nice big deep breath. Great. And I want you to think about what it was that drew you here today. What are your questions, your yearnings around mothering? If you had a magic wand and could get anything out of this time together focusing on mothering, what would it be? Just be with that for a moment. And I'm not promising magic or answers to all of them, but with your agreement to have an open mind and heart, it is my intention that you come away with both new insights and ways to think about this topic of mothering, as well as affirmation or awakening for what you already know to be true inside of you. You can go ahead and open your eyes. And I invite you now on a journey with me. We're on a pilgrimage, 2017, led by Dr. Judith Wright. And we're on the Mekong River in Laos. During this trip, we went to a place called the Pa Khao Caves. They were named, and it's named the beautifully imperfect Buddhas, because all the Buddha statues there are discarded from temples, but come together in that space, they're beautiful. So I was already kind of thinking about my imperfections and what they meant to me and how in this space they were still so beautiful. And then I found myself at the mouth of a cave. And to me, this image, when I came upon this Buddha, looked very much to me like a pregnant Buddha. And after I emerged from the cave and this beautiful silent experience, under what I perceived as a compassionate gaze, I unburdened my heart. Memories, images, critical thoughts I had of myself as a mother came flooding in. This wasn't new, because I've been on this journey in my doctoral studies and was in this reckoning, but what was new was how I was feeling about those judgments, those thoughts, and I was having compassion for myself, and I was having compassion for a woman caring for her children with all of her heart amidst a lot of fear and a lot of insecurity. Had I just given birth to a new me? I don't know, but I do know I felt lighter. Our next stop was a small village on the river's edge. Clearly none of our modern conveniences, running water, electricity, and one of the women had an infant in her arms. And I started to wonder what it was like for these women, for this woman as a new mother. What was she thinking about? Was she wondering if she was doing it right? Did she feel the pressure? Was she torn? Should she breastfeed? Was she torn between being a stay-at-home mom or her career? What pressure, was she under all this pressure? Was any of the women sitting next to her wondering, like, they hadn't had children, and was that okay? And were they really a woman because they didn't have a child? I don't think that's what they were thinking, because those are the questions for us in our advanced Western culture. And while it may have seemed attractive for a moment to be free of that pressure, those thoughts and those criticisms, did I think we should throw away all of our modern conveniences, all the technology we have around mothering and childbirth? No, I didn't. But did I think we need, and do I think we need, to take a serious look at the pressure women are under to both be mothers and to perform as mothers? Yes, I do. Because this pressure to be a mother and to perform is something I know a lot about personally. Growing up, I learned from my mom that you have children to get your needs met. They're there for you, for your benefit. Growing up, I didn't feel empowered by my mother to develop a sense of myself and my own self-esteem. I chose, perfectly as a child for my own development, I chose the role to pretty much do her bidding and whatever she wished so I could have her attention and her favor. And really what mattered to her was how I looked. I really considered myself a doll that she could dress up. And if I wanted acknowledgement and validation, I did it her way. Now my parents, they did not have a close relationship. So my mom coming to me and my brother to get her needs met was, now as an adult, perfectly understandable. They got married because she was pregnant with my brother. My dad said he'd give having a family a try. And I never heard him say, I love you, to either my mom or to us. But I was still definitely one of those women that didn't question I was going to get married and have children. And I wasn't really worried about whether I'd succeeded or not. It was just, something I would do. So pretty shortly after graduating from college, I found the man that would provide for me and provide the security I was looking for, and someone that would kind of fit a similar role to my mother. And after we got married, it probably was within the first year, my mom said, well, now it's time to have kids. And it felt like a directive, and I was just really thrown by it, and I felt myself go into that mindless, like, okay, now, like robotic, now it's time to have kids. But prior to getting married, my husband and I had started on our own growth journey, and I'm so grateful. And when this directive, this edict came up, I was angry. And that was a very new feeling for me, to allow myself to feel angry. And I said, no, we are doing this in our timeline, and it's our choice how and when we decide to have a child. Wow, did that feel amazing. But it still was going to happen. That wasn't the question, it's just when. And while I don't have full time to go into my whole process with that, the fact that I was part of now a growth community that was really supporting me to have critical thinking and my choices as that became near for me, and particularly when it came to deciding to start trying to have a child and I wasn't getting my period, and when you just go to the typical Western medicine ideal, it was scary and upsetting to have the only thing they told me I would do is to go on medication, and if that didn't work in a few months, we'll refer you to a fertility specialist. I was angry again because I knew that there were other options. I knew there were other things to try before I did that. And I'm so grateful because it put me on an emotional, internal journey that I would have completely avoided had I not known it was possible. And the key factor that came from that journey that was quite surprising and disturbing, but also freeing in some work that I was doing personally was I was afraid. And I was afraid that I would be a mother like my mother had been. And how could I avoid that? But once I came to that truth and just said that truth, a whole space opened up for me, and my cycles started, and now it was like, okay, time to try. So we went on that journey. And that journey didn't go like the clockwork we all hope it would, and months went by. And again, we went on that exploration, and through Sophia, the Society of Femininity in Action, I learned to learn about my body. I learned to honor my body as a woman's body, and what did that mean, and how does it work? I didn't really know much about what went on from here down. So it was just a general discovery, and it was okay, and it wasn't bad, and it was wonderful. But it still wasn't happening, right? But I was grateful for this journey. And my husband and I found ourselves on yet another pilgrimage. And now we're in Ireland, a fertile place to be sure, as my friend Ann Gallagher would know, a beautiful feminine space. And we told everybody on this pilgrimage with us that we were, in this process, and we had a lot of fun with it, and kind of fun little rituals, but also, really kind of holding it preciously as well. And one day the bus driver that we had said, I think we should stop here. And he pulls over to a roadside Mary grotto, only in Ireland, with the landscape be scattered with miraculous roadside Mary grottos. So we went to this space, and as we often do, we're silent, and I'm meditating in that space. And I had what I can only consider a real struck by lightning experience of what I felt like was God or Spirit talking to me. And in that experience, the voice I heard said, "You and Rich are a family, whether you have a child or not." And I sobbed. It had never occurred to me. I didn't know that was possible. It's like a family meant you had a child, but we could be. And I felt like another huge weight was lifted off me. Not that we were going to stop trying or that was, a directive. It was an invitation and an opening. And I don't know how these things work, but I'm open to all possibilities. But we did conceive a month later. Pregnancy. Okay, you find out you're we kept it kind of our secret for a while, but it didn't stop me from running out and getting the book I had been giving all my friends, giving them their copy of what was then, 23, 4 years ago, the book on pregnancy. So I get this book, I'm so excited, I sit down with it, and it was awful. Awful. I renamed it, and when I get really good at PowerPoint, I'll do something fancy to this, where I cross that title out and I say, what horrible things to expect when you're expecting. Because it was literally a book full of of the drama and the victimhood, and of course some good medical things or things that you should be looking for, and if you are having a problem, it's a great resource guide, but it was in no way a woman's comfort book in her pregnancy. So I quickly learned that there were going to be a lot of things out there that I was going to have to discern. And through my work with, again, and coaching and Sophia, I chose to have a victimhood-free pregnancy. So when there were all those uncomfortable things, I was embracing it. I learned to embrace what that was versus people found out I was having a summer pregnancy. They're like, oh my God, you're going to be so hot. It's going to be horrible. And you're going to waddle, you'll probably swell up. And I had so much more choice in that than I ever would have thought or realized and was encouraged to explore. And I just really thought pregnancy was wonderful and amazing. And then, coming up real soon here is this birth thing that's about to happen. And I started to wonder, how is this going to happen? We had chosen a home birth and a natural childbirth because I had really reacquainted myself with pain and this idea of pain. And unlike our culture that only wants to numb it and only wants us to put it away, I wanted the full experience. And I knew it included pain, and I figured having it at home would support that choice and decision, and it really did. It was painful. And with the support of my midwife and midwives, I was able to really step into that pain and have an experience with pain like I could have never imagined. And after I gave birth to our first daughter, I thought I was a goddess. Literally was amazed at what my body and what women's bodies can do. On the flip side, being a new mom, complete opposite. I was so insecure as a new mother. Trouble nursing, trouble latching on, lactation consultants, not knowing who to go to, how to manage this, what feels life-threatening at the moment and a new life in your arms, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And again, supported for now Rich and I to really explore this. It's okay, get the help you need, get a lactation consultant, sort through the myriad of choices, cow's milk, formula, keep going. And then to look at ourselves. What was going on with us? What were we afraid of? How were we not nourishing ourselves, getting the nourishment we needed? And really ask some uncomfortable questions. Why would we be keeping her small? Things that you would never think and say and ask the unsayable. And that really moved us as a couple and me as an individual. And she did start gaining weight. On the flip side of that, another dynamic was surfacing that really pricked my insecurity. And I was experiencing my husband's what felt natural, and confidence in fathering as disempoweringly competitive. And by that I mean, and maybe some women would love the fact that their husband could come in and take the baby out of my arms and just do some special little rock thing and, soothe her. to me, it only reinforced my feelings of not enoughness. And this journey continued. And after a unsuccessful stint as a full-time mother, but I was determined to do it after my second daughter was born, I went back to school, this time for my first master's degree in psychology. And it was during this time that I joined the Wright Foundation for part-time coaching. But now, fast forward a number of years, I had become the director of the family programs. I was in this exploration. I was in an environment, not 24/7, but a fair amount that is dedicated to personal growth work. But what was coming up for me under the light of the Buddha and through my doctoral process was not really being able to shake the fact that I actually hid behind that role. I had hid behind the role of facilitator, not taking the full opportunity that was available to me to transform myself during these years of mothering. I couldn't stop thinking about the decisions I had and hadn't made regarding how we raised our daughters. I was filled with regret when I thought about I really didn't do what I could do to create a real feminine experience for them, instead moving more toward academic success and the accomplishment. And when it came time to decide between ballet and soccer, of course soccer won. My husband's coaching the soccer team, and that'll be good for them. They should be competitive and aggressive. But through all of that and the regrets of feeling like I could have given them so much more on the feminine side, what I regret most is losing myself as I became enmeshed in their lives, really losing my identity. And as I cried over these lost pieces of myself, as I said, I really felt it was important to face this pain. But this pain, it started to become clear to me. It didn't have to be a waste. It wasn't going to be me just wallowing the rest of my life in regret and remorse, but that I could use that to support other women. I knew what was possible. I had seen it. I had tasted it. And I really wanted that because I just knew in my heart and saw what was possible for other women. And then what I learned even more in my professional experience and then research and doctoral experience is that this messy, complicated, and rewarding experience of mothering brings up a woman's, as Fritz Perls would say, unfinished business like no other role she will take on. And it's in this messy, I have a slide for this, it's in this disoriented, bewildered, perplexed place that a woman finds her in what is considered one of the most stressful, but any woman faced with huge adult stress or distress. This is actually the perfect soil and foundation for adult transformation. As a matter of fact, it's difficult for it even to happen without this. Jack Mesereau's work highlights the fact that our early childhood is our formation. It just happens. We're in an environment, it happens, but as adults, we need to choose our transformation, and it's in this environment that really it gets fostered and happens. So let's talk about our wiring for a sec, because most of us have one model for mothering, and that's how we were mothered. And whether our mothers were wonderful or awful, whether they were nurturing or cold, self-aware or reacting to how they were mothered, a model is encoded in us. This plays a pivotal role in our paradigm for mothering, and it's problematic. And while there are 3 key areas we need to address that each play a role in our broken mother code, the coding from our upbringing is one of, if not the most significant. The problem is that we're often unconscious to the impact our mother or close caregiver in those really early years had on us. We are very wired from what we experienced early on, and again, going back to Freud and others going forward in neuroscience, we know that what got fired together, and as our neurons are developing and there's so much going on in our brain it's developed, is the model and the pattern that's right in front of us. You know, what a caregiver is happening and how that relationship is happening is getting encoded in us. And it plays a pivotal role in how we experience and make our choices later on in mothering. Are we going to be reactive to that wiring, or are we just going to kind of float along in the stream? And no matter how that went for you, whether it was like on the positive side or, really disruptive, and I want to be the key thing is, no matter how it was, is that we make our own choices. And we want to question that upbringing. We want to bring it to the surface. We want to look deep within there so we can make our own choices. And going back to our friend, Dr. Sigmund Freud, I think I mentioned him, I really got to appreciate the work that he did and how he launched us into all of what we take for granted now about the unconscious and conscious mind. He did that. And if we look at this iceberg metaphor that he came up with, where we see at the top and the surface, our conscious mind is what we know, and the unconscious underneath. Where is all the power? Under the surface. So we think we're making choices and decisions up here. We think yeah, I want to be a mother. Yeah, I want to do it this way. But really, all those choices and decisions are happening from down here. So in order for us to, and we'll talk about this more later, to actually have those choices, we have to start looking under the surface. And the more we can lower that water level, the more power we'll have. So second, in addition to the code of our upbringing, is the code inherent as children of a Western culture, children, adults. It's vital that we address all the rules implied and sometimes spoken aloud about what it means to do mothering right. There is still an assumption, we have come a ways, but there's still a very broad assumption that a woman will get married, irrespective of the gender of the partner, and in order to have a meaningful life, will have a biological child, and if that doesn't happen, adopt or have a child in some way. So as a result of that, in our current culture, we're asked all these questions and trying to get all these answers, and inherent in us and what is encoded in us is some version of this internalized ideal. And we're reacting to this ideal in some way. Because no one tells us that the reality is really this. And when we see that it really is this and we're experiencing this, we certainly aren't supposed to talk about it because we really don't want to take the risk and have anybody think that we're not anything other than the best mom in the history of the world. A true story. Because if we're not that, or we're not that, then we're, and we can't be, right? And because we're not going to be, and we need to know this, and we also need to know that we're in an environment that is really driven by, and I go into these a lot more in my half-day seminar, but what is intensive mothering, scientific mothering, or the good mother, all of which only puts pressure on a woman to try and do it right. And no matter how hard we try and follow these formulas, and I know you'd be familiar with them if you saw them, no matter how hard we try, inevitably, you're doing it wrong. You're going to be doing it wrong, and someone's going to say you're doing it wrong. There's going to be some expert out there that says you're doing it wrong, and no matter how right the current culture is, 10 minutes later, there's a new culture about how you're supposed to do it. So we're pretty much SOL when it comes to that. So we've been socialized in so many ways. So when it comes to all of the decisions along the way, we see what we're up against. And then the third area, ripe for transformation, is how we define mothering. Mothering is not only the process of having a child. This is not the only definition. Now, while this is lovely and it is beautiful, not taken away from it at all, this is actually a narrow definition. It's inaccurate and it's constricting. Mothering is an experience that all women have access to, whether you have a child or not. So therefore, and I hope you agree, but if not, that's okay, we can talk about it. We need a new paradigm for mothering, one that is evidence-based and applied, one that lets you be authentic, make mistakes, and rewrite your own mother code so you can learn and grow and evolve and ultimately mother yourself. So how do we do that? So the first part of rewriting our own mother code is to go back into our histories, heal our own family experiences, explore that territory so we're not trapped by our histories. Rather, they become the vehicle for our personal transformation. So what this means in practical terms on a day-to-day as a mother, or as we'll find out in all of the stresses and areas that we experience mothering with or without a child, is that we become aware on a moment-to-moment basis of our mothering reactions. We're able to ask ourselves, what is triggering me right now? Am I seeing myself, my old wounds in my partner, my friend, my child? What are those experiences? What are the feelings that are coming up for me? And as we answer these questions, we are asking ourselves, we're able to take ourselves out of our past histories and out of our reactive responses into the present moment, where we can be the most nourished and fulfilled. At the Wright Foundation, and we learn about this extensively in all, whether you're in the Wright Graduate University or in our other programs, developed by Dr. Bob Wright, the Wright Developmental Model. Looks like a bunch of words and a stair step and some, academic model, but as I've come to appreciate and know this model, it's not something that you take steps up and achieve, it's a map of consciousness. Along with that, and just to name, because we're in a WGU environment, come together here are existential principles, Adlerian lifestyle, existential choice at every level, and developmental psychology. That, coupled with, developed by Dr. Judith Wright, the evaluating process. Now this gives us, so the Wright Developmental Model gave us a map. This gives us the vehicle to make it a reality. This is a process for transformation that when applied and utilized, you really can transform. And this is through her research and her doctoral research. So then we go back, and through all of that, this is what can help lower the water level for you. So we'll be more intentional about how we take action, or we don't, the feelings, but most of all, we can protect ourselves, because in this mothering arena, from the external environment and others' judgments of us in our mothering choices. The second step to rewriting our mothering code is to illuminate and become aware of our cultural blocks. Once we know what they are around pregnancy or birth, we can make more informed choices. You decide, you make the choices. I've developed, in the research in my doctoral study, in the curriculum evaluation study, I narrowed in on 14 myths that a woman encounters in all of her choices around mothering. And what they all have in common, and I go into these when we have more time, what they all have in common is that anything that makes a woman feel inferior or fearful of her mothering choices needs a rewrite. Finally, for this new paradigm of mothering, we must expand our definition so that all women define themselves as mothers. We must resist defining mothering as only a womb-based event. We must go beyond motherhood. All women mother. While our bodies may exemplify our ability to create and nurture life through this process of having a child, all women have access to the inherently feminine process of conceiving, gestating, and birthing. Even if we don't have children, we conceive, create, and give birth to ideas, to relationships, to careers. And the most overlooked and yet important person we need and have an opportunity to mother is ourselves. For when we mother ourselves, we take care of our physical needs, our emotional well-being, and we invest in building a core sense of self before we endeavor to build anyone else's. So what I want for you, whether you are here today as a woman with a child, as a woman in the throes of new motherhood, or your children are grown and you're at the other side of that aspect of mothering, or you're wondering if you're ever going to have a child, or do you want a child? No matter where you are on that continuum, you have the opportunity to mother yourself. And it's to remember, as you're doing that the richest moments of mothering are the ones you're truly present for. Our dear friend also in the grad school studying Ram Dass, be here now. Be present for ourselves first and foremost, and if we have them, children and or partners. Of course, if this were easy, we'd all be doing it. We'd all feel nourished rather than depleted as women. We'd feel empowered instead of guilty around our mothering choices. We'd be open and real with other women rather than competing and judging each other's choices in order to justify our own. For when we do this, and let's be brave and honest, most of us do, we all lose. What if instead we were one team as women? What if we saw mother as an opportunity to grow ourselves up with our children? I have had the honor of coaching women who have gone all in this realm. And it's beautiful, it's messy, it's disruptive, it's scary. And they would say it's been the most fulfilling, and I see them transforming over and over again in their lives. And in each of those examples, and I wish I had time to go into them because they're hugely inspiring, they ask themselves questions like, how do I want to express myself as a mother? How will I differentiate what culture and society tells me I should do from what I want my mother code to be? How can I use the experience I am in as an opportunity to learn and grow and mother myself? By asking each of these questions, women have an opportunity to address their social conditioning, heal past wounds, and cultivate greater self-awareness and self-compassion. And of course, none of this transformation and that happened magically. The women who I've mentioned, I had the opportunity to be with, applied the tools, and much more extensively, obviously, than I went into, to engage in this messy, beautiful paradigm of mothering with or without children. So, again, what I want for you, above all else, is to mother yourself, your way. We all need more mothering. Our planet desperately needs more mothering. And that can only happen if we go on this journey of transformation, personally and collectively. We don't have to reach enlightenment before we can feel okay in our mothering, but we can have less attachment to our personal histories, our cultural myths, and we can have more compassion for ourselves and our journey as we courageously and collectively rewrite the mother code. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just close your eyes. Before we discuss anything, and we'll have a few moments to do that, I just want you to take a few moments just to be with yourself. What are your thoughts, your feelings, anything that you're aware of for yourself from what I've shared here today? Be with whatever feelings are there, and you can stay in that closed-eyed, or if you want to open your eyes, I guess I don't. I'll just ask you to think about, what are the areas of where I would rewrite my mother code? What family areas do I have? What cultural areas? How would I envision myself mothering today, this week, this month? So take a nice big deep breath. Oh, keep forgetting to not breathe so loudly into the microphone. And if anybody's willing, I'd love to hear a comment or, at least one comment, maybe two. Ruth has a microphone if you are. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think from the beginning when you asked us for a word, I realize that so much of my fear about motherhood relates to that word, martyrdom. That
Yeah.
like, there's this picture in my mind of if I were to be a mother of an actual child, I would have to give up basically my whole life as I know it.
Right.
And so I think going forward, picturing if I never have children, there's still work for me to do on having my life be what I want it to be.
Sure.
And there'd be that like extra level of difficulty, I'm sure, if I were mothering a child also. But like the work is there for me to do, whether I do or I don't. To really feel like my life is for me, and
Beautiful.
I create it in a way that works for me, no matter how I mother.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Kate. 'Cause I saw the whole spectrum there, like looking at what was modeled for me, and I'm going to make an assumption that that's the paradigm you saw, and and the possibility that I could create it differently, and that I am. Yeah. Okay, one more, Tanya. Thanks.
So for me, I think a lot of my mothering tactics came from wanting to do everything totally opposite
Right.
of how I was mothered.
Right. That's the reactive way to
Right,
go
so
about
I
it,
was
right?
reactive, but realizing that is actually coming from a negative place, not necessarily an empowering place.
Right. Or not really by choice. It's not our full choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And realizing that every child that I had, and I had a few, I get an opportunity to remother me. That was new. I mean, I would see them like, oh my goodness, I remember doing that.
Yep.
And in some places getting triggered, but then other places being very sympathetic or empathetic.
Beautiful.
So yeah, it's just a different way to look at mothering.
Thank you. Thanks. Big applause for you. So we're at time, and I really want to thank all of you, and those of you on the webcast, those that were here live, to be with me here today as we explore this new paradigm for mothering. I have a couple things up here, because I hope that you got a taste both of the Wright Graduate University, this process of emergence, in the area of mothering, so many things, whatever came up for you, that you have ways that you can contact us and stay connected with us, because we would love to support you, and we honor your journey in many ways. So thank you very much.